Welcome to the Financial Planner Life channel, and today we're going to talk about the CeMAP qualification with Adam Owen from the Financial Planner Life Academy. We're going to take a deep dive into each of the modules, and you're going to work out whether or not it's the right route for you to start a career in mortgage and protection. Be sure to subscribe to this channel to not miss great content like this, and if you're looking to start your career in financial planning, make sure you check out the link in the comments below to sign up to the Academy. Enjoy. Adam, how are you today?
Sam, really good today and excited to be chatting about everything we've got lined up.
Fantastic. It's great to have you here. Obviously a partner of the Financial Planner Life Academy. We're going to take people through their qualifications, whether that's to become an administrator within financial planning, a power planner within financial planning, a financial advisor, or a mortgage and protection advisor. And today that's what we're going to talk about is mortgage and protection advice. Specifically, we're going to talk about the CeMAP qualification. Now, for those that are embarking upon their journey and they're doing all their Google searching, they're coming across YouTube videos like this, let's give them an overview, first of all, of exactly what the CeMAP qualification is.
Yes, Sam. So the CeMAP qualification is the core qualification for mortgage advisors. It's one of two primary options, but the CeMAP is provided by the London Institute of Banking and Finance. And in the mortgage profession, it has very much, since the very early days of mortgage regulation, been seen as that core qualification. So the CeMAP exam works across three multiple choice modules. You have up to a year to take all of the three modules ordinarily, but of course, depending on the amount of study that you do and how often you study, can shorten that timescale quite dramatically. And with the CeMAP qualification, you can become a regulated mortgage advisor and begin to move through the CAS process to advise clients on mortgages.
Fantastic. What a great opportunity just to bring in what does CAS actually mean when it comes to giving advice as a mortgage and protection advisor.
So CAS stands for Competent Advisor Status. And so anybody can go and sit the exams, but how are you going to be able to go and give advice? And how competent are you at giving advice? So each firm and every potential employer will have a training and competency scheme. And within that training and competency scheme, they will set out their CAS standards. Now, those are informed by the requirements of the regulator, but each firm is slightly different. And so some firms will have maybe a two-step process. First of all, you might be out seeing clients under 100% supervision with another advisor observing you for a period of time. And again, that is dependent on the firm's training and competency process. And then gradually over time, as you begin to demonstrate your competency and your ability to deal with questions in front of clients and to answer clients accurately and to demonstrate that technical knowledge that you've learned through the exam, then you'll move to another part of the CAS process, eventually to be signed off as fully competent advisor status, which will then mean that you'll just be part of the normal training and competency regime, which still means there'll be annual assessments and it still means you'll have the occasional observed meeting to ensure that you're maintaining those high standards. But it's the point at which you are free to go out and see clients without supervision.
Fantastic. What a great explanation. Thank you so much for that, Adam. And one of the things I want to add here is that our academy also has a program within it that can prepare students for competent advisor status. So when you eventually then move into a mortgage protection role, that employer can look at you and think, wow, they already understand what's required of them to go through competent advisor status. Therefore, it improves your candidature in the marketplace. And I'm proud that the Financial Planner Life Academy has that program within it, because we want to do everything we possibly can to get people through the process and get them in front of clients and get them a job. So thank you so much for that explanation, Adam. Now, Adam, we know that just getting the qualifications doesn't make you a mortgage and protection advisor. There are a lot of skills that are required to be good at your job. What else do we do within our academy to help support trainee advisors when it comes to mortgage advice?
That's a great question, Sam, because when we think about academies, we often focus on the exams, but that is only half the story. And the other half of that story is about moving towards being a competent financial advisor or a competent mortgage advisor. And how we do that is we provide client meeting skills modules. So they're on a 10-module basis, and we go through 3 core programs of client meeting skills, each of them iterative. So we start at the very beginning and think about how to communicate and how to actually behave like a human in front of a client. Because one of the big things that you don't realize until you sat in front of a client is you can do all this study and you can have all of this great technical knowledge, but you actually have to talk to another person. And whilst you're doing it, there are compliance requirements. You're expected to write down what they're saying and record what's happening in the meeting, and move through an agenda and understand what's coming next and cover certain key elements that are regulatory requirements, such as disclosure and talking about fees and thinking about the client's attitude to risk and considering their current position and thinking about their objectives and their goals and their dreams and asking questions about all of those things. So all of this is mixed up in a great soup of a client meeting. And what we really need to do is break that down. And that's what we do in the academy. We start with the absolute basics. How do we communicate with another person? How do we put them at ease? How do we build rapport? How do we build trust with that person? And then we begin to move through each of the elements of a standard process, because there is so much regulation within the process that all firms have to follow certain key points. But we look at building skills so that you can introduce each of these regulatory requirements elegantly and in a way that puts the client at ease. And to do so, in each part of every conversation, we're focusing on what's in it for the client and the value that we deliver. So it ticks all the boxes for competency. It covers the compliance process. It means that people are prepared when they start with their new firm to go into that competent advisor status assessment process, that they've already got a lot of the core skills and they've already practiced a lot of their own scripts so that it feels like they are actually doing it and it's their words. Oftentimes, if you're using somebody else's script, the best you can ever do is be a karaoke version of them. And so we need to find ways in which we can be comfortable with the words that we're using. And that's what the academy process focuses on. It gives people the competence and the confidence to actually sit with clients and to begin that process, whether it be under supervision or through the training process that might be initially just in a role play situation. But it gives you that head start.
Absolutely love that, Adam. And that was one of the things that was hugely important to both of us when we came together to create the Financial Planner Life Academy. Not only from a hiring manager's perspective, a company want to hire somebody that have got the soft skills and a good understanding of what's required in the role, not just the qualifications. And most importantly as well, from a wellness perspective, we want to ensure that any candidate, any student that goes through this process is putting their best foot forward in respect of exactly what they need to do to be a success in the role. And obviously we are helping them improve their candidature. So when it comes to actually then putting them in front of hiring managers and companies, they're going to look at their credentials, what they've been through the academy, and it's a no-brainer to take somebody on from the Financial Planner Life Academy over, say, somebody that hasn't had that training and expertise and understanding about how to do the job, not just the qualifications, right?
That's exactly it, Sam. It's that combined package, and that's the thing that makes you really employable.
So Adam, let's take a look now at the different modules when it comes to being CeMAP qualified to give mortgage and protection advice. So let's start with module 1, CeMAP 1. Could you give us an overview of that?
Of course, Sam. And the 3 modules are fairly straightforward and they follow an iterative process. Module 1 looks at the regulatory framework and the very basics of mortgage advice. And the regulatory framework is very important. Of course, mortgages are a very heavily regulated environment, and it's very important that at that very basic core level that candidates understand the rules and then know where they can go and at what point of their career and their competent advisor status they can actually move through. And so that's where that first module starts. It tells you what you can do, and it also tells you what you can't do. And it tells you how mortgages are regulated. There's also elements of history in there as well, so you can understand the context around the subject. And that's very important for a lot of learners when they're starting on their exam journey. Something that doesn't have context can be either very dull or very confusing. So that first module puts context into it. You can understand why it's important as well as the content itself.
Fantastic. So what would somebody expect from Module 1? Can you give us a kind of snapshot of some of the things that might well be covered, Adam?
Yeah, the basic regulatory framework will be covered. So who does what within regulation. There are topics around the Financial Conduct Authority, of course, our main conduct regulator. But also, it steps out from that. It looks at the role of the Treasury. It looks at the role of other regulators, the Bank of England in particular, of course, that have such an influence in the mortgage sector and the mortgage market. So you're going to get a real breadth of information. And at this first level, there is a lot to understand. There's an awful lot of abbreviations and acronyms. You'll need to know what the FCA is. You'll need to know what the PRA is. You'll need to know all of these things. So there's a lot of learning at this point. It's a lot of bullet point key facts. And that's a different discipline to some of the rest of the exam modules, which are quite interpretive. So this overall exam, the whole process is going to test lots of different aspects of how your brain works. And some people have strengths in certain areas, other people have strength in others. This first one, very factual, it's very bullet point driven. You're learning dates, facts, regulatory requirements.
That's really interesting. So how is our academy going to support the different learning styles and the best approach to passing that CeMAP 1 qualification?
That's a great question, Sam. And we start by understanding the individual. So we have a learning styles assessment in the academy, and that will tell us a lot more about each candidate and exactly how they like to learn. So are you a reflector, a theorist? Are you an activist, or are you a pragmatist? In each of these areas, and most people are a combination of one or two of those. So in each of these areas, it will lead to a different solution. The academy has multiple layers of different ways in which you can study. So there are video modules. We have group tutorials. You can do one-to-one tutorials. We have peer learning where you can share with a group who are also doing the same exam. There are, of course, active sessions. So you can be doing exams, test questions, knowledge checks. Everything's in there to play to each individual's strengths. But then what we also do is overlay that with what we think you should be doing in order to get the core information locked down for each module. So in this first module, it's a lot of bullet point learning. It's writing flip cards. And so we give you the content that you need to do that. We don't write and provide the flip cards for each candidate because for some people, actually designing their own study materials and their own flip cards is part of the learning process. And so we allow space for your own learning process. And that's really important when you're doing this exam and all future exams, is to understand the module itself, know what's important, and know what the examiner is looking to get from it, and then apply the right tools and techniques overlaid with your own learning styles and preferences. And that's what gets you the best results.
And that's what I really wanted from the Financial Planner Life Academy. Everybody's different when it comes to their learning style. And one of the things I want to sort of emphasize here as well for anybody that's going to then join that Financial Planner Life Academy, you're joining a community of individuals that are going through the process at different stages. So you get to lean into the community and you get to build relationships, and you'll start to pick up things that they're doing that you could possibly do to improve your situation. We're even going to have mentors in there that will give expert advice on a weekly and a monthly basis. So it's a continuation of learning, not only through modules and expert trainers, but also through community. Again, for me, it's about the journey. How can we make this journey really accessible, interesting, and engaging? And we're doing that with the Financial Planner Life Academy for our delegates, and I love it. So we've covered CeMAP 1. Next is CeMAP 2. Adam, give us an overview of what the delegate is going to expect from this module.
Absolutely, Sam. So CeMAP 1 started with regulation and the framework. So the landscape on which everything else sits. CeMAP 2 then begins to put the building blocks in place so you can see what it is that a mortgage advisor is going to need to know and gets involved with. So we look at mortgage products. We look at how mortgage products are created and underwritten. We look at how they are delivered. We look at how the underwriting process works when people apply for mortgages. So we look at all of that element of things. We look at how interest rates are affected by the Bank of England and the Monetary Policy Committee and how those mechanisms change the mortgage market. So it's everything to do with the nuts and bolts of the mortgage profession. It gets into the detail, at times on a very granular level. And with this exam, one of the big challenges is understanding the perspective of the examiners and thinking about how the examiners are, or what the examiners are wanting you to demonstrate with your knowledge. And so that's what we look at in the academy. We consider just what the examiners are going to be testing, but also we think about the why. It's always really important to put it into context rather than just saying you have to study this, because some of this material is still going to be quite dry. When we think about the mortgage application process, when we think about underwriting, this information is not the most exciting. And it's also something that's super important that we're going to need to know to be a mortgage advisor. So it's the nuts and bolts of the whole process in Module 2.
What we have to also take into consideration that these qualifications, they're not just to go and put on your wall, it's also to show the FCA that you know what you're talking about. And also, more importantly, the customer, the client, understands you know what you're talking about. And this is the importance. It may be a bit dusty, it may be a little bit boring, hard to digest, but it is important and part of your job, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what we do is we try and take the dusty and boring and hard to digest and we try and bring it alive. And that's the key part of what we do in the academy with our live sessions, with the on-demand video. We're not just simply telling you that this is a thing and you've got to go and learn it. We're actually talking about why it's important, how it works in the context of other things, and bring it alive with real life examples. So we're looking at what that means if somebody wants to go and get their own property and buy a house and use a mortgage to do that, or if somebody's looking to buy an investment property, or if somebody's looking at pre-retirement to sell a property, or then consider maybe rather than selling to remortgage on an equity release basis. We touch on all of these things and we look at all of the different products and we bring it into real world context. So we dust it off and we put it out there in a way that makes it real and hopefully an awful lot more engaging.
Which is exactly what we wanted from the Financial Planner Life Academy, was to make it a community again where people can lean into each other, not just expert trainers getting you through those modules, getting you passing those exams and making it more interesting, but also being able to bounce off those people within the community. Because the other option is you sit in your back bedroom and that dusty, boring book you open up and start to look at yourself becomes even more boring. So the aim is for us to make it exciting, to make it interesting. So when you do start to lose and your concentration wanes ever so slightly, the community will pick you back up again.
That's exactly it, Sam. It's all about community and collaboration. And it's also about sharing the fact that, you'll be tired at times. There'll be times where you won't actually feel like studying, and to know that that's okay. And it's okay to take a break, and it's okay to get behind. We don't really follow the concept of behind or ahead of a particular timetable in the academy. We work on the basis that everything that you do each day that's positive and takes you a step more toward passing that exam is a celebration, and you should be celebrating that. It's not a case of, I didn't do an hour and a half today and therefore I'm behind. It's a case of, great, I did 50 minutes. I'm that much further toward passing this exam.
Fantastic. All about celebrating success. One of the main things I want to do with this community as well, and this will grow as we bring people in it, is to really focus on that wellness element. Things like, what are you doing to rest? Are you having those wins that you need so desperately to have to keep yourself moving forward? We're going to bring things like meditation into it, mental fitness, and we're going to have our own talk club in there. So if you are struggling within there, people can connect and talk about while they're struggling so we can get over it and move forward with the right mindset. Right, so we've covered CeMAP 1, we've covered CeMAP 2. Let's look at the final one, CeMAP 3. Could you give us an overview, Adam, of what to expect from CeMAP 3?
Yes, Sam. So CeMAP 3 brings the first two papers together and then looks at whether or not a candidate can research based on their understanding of a client scenario. So you're presented with client scenarios, and then you need to choose the solution. And so it will analyze, that paper analyzes whether or not you're going to select a suitable and appropriate solution for the client. So it's another skill, and it begins to help a candidate to demonstrate for future employers that they can make those key decisions. They can do that analysis. It shows that a candidate can deploy some critical thinking when faced with a number of different options and trying to link those options back to the client's own requirements. Just exactly which one do we pick, and understanding the reasons behind picking that. So critical thinking is what is most important for this final exam, and really having an understanding of what solution to deploy with which type of scenario.
Fantastic. So at this stage, perspective's probably really important. So again, leaning into the community and seeing things from a different perspective, maybe leaning into some different modules within the community to help understand CeMAP 3 a little bit better and prepare you for the world of work.
Yeah, and it's also where the mentor program will help an awful lot with this, Sam, because it's gaining that experience from existing financial planners and mortgage practitioners who operate in this space to understand just how we go about taking the client's objectives, analyzing the various different options, and picking that suitable solution. And a lot of that can come from experience, but that experience is shared with the mentor program.
And this is what we want to make everybody aware. If you're going on this journey to do your CeMAP qualifications, you've obviously got the Financial Planner Life podcast to lean into, and hopefully you've come from that and found this video. Now, within the community itself, there's going to be exclusive behind the scenes videos with those that do the job. We're going to bring them into the community. We're going to ask them questions that you want answered, the community, and we're going to provide that on an exclusive basis within the financial planner community. So another reason why, really, if you're going through your qualification routes to become a mortgage advisor and pass your 3 qualifications, you need to do it with support, and the Financial Planner Life Academy is geared up to exactly provide that. So it's also worth mentioning at this point, you don't have to just do the CeMAP qualification to become qualified to be a mortgage advisor. You can also go down the CII route. So go and check out our video about CII versus CeMAP when it comes to getting qualified as a mortgage advisor, and what the benefits are of perhaps doing it CII if, in the long term, you actually want to progress into financial planning. What about if we talked about the fact that there's lots of numbers flying around for how long it takes to pass CeMAP qualifications, but in reality, it's different person to person. What things do you think someone can do to ensure that they get through those qualifications in the timescale that suits them?
Yes, Sam, you'll see all over the place 300 hours study, 500 hours study. All of these different exam qualifications have recommended study hours. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't study the recommended study hours. If you sat on your own with a textbook, it might take that long. Some of these textbooks are 400-500 pages long. So of course it's going to take time. But in the academy, and part of the process that we've developed over years, is this idea that each individual will study at their own pace, but we put a structure around that and give you tools and techniques in order to make it manageable. And so rather than seeing something as a 300-hour exercise, we think about how can you study less but pass more? How can you make the use of the time that you are deploying in your study to the greatest effect? And so we work on the basis that if you are doing an hour a day, and if you're keeping that up consistently, maybe in 2 half-hour segments, and do that for 5, 6, or 7 days every week, then you should be ready to sit an exam with these modules every 10 weeks or so. So if you're doing 2 hours a day, you can shorten that time. If you're doing 3 hours a day, you can shorten that time. But of course, you end up with slightly diminishing returns. It doesn't mean that if you do 2 hours a day, it will be a 5-week process, because there's only so much your brain can take in. And we absorb the information that we learn overnight when we sleep. and we commit it to memory when we get rest. And so it's really important that actually you get rest in between your chunks of study. So if you're doing 8 hours a day and cramming for the week before the exam, you'll remember less than if you did an hour a day over a longer period of time. So if you start sooner, and if you plan and if you build in your study sessions to work around your day, to work around what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, take plenty of breaks, then you'll find that actually more of it sticks in. So it's a more efficient way of studying. So if you are needing to pass the exam in a fortnight, then you're going to need to study for most of that fortnight because you just won't be remembering as much of what you are reading. And so you're going to have to keep going over it and over it and over it. If you are taking a longer period of time doing smaller chunks, then more of that will lock in. So it's a more efficient way of studying. But of course, everybody's different and everyone's requirements are different. There may be a need to pass the exam in a short space of time. So of course the Academy can support that. But it may be that people want to take that more measured path and find a balance and find that balance between life. Because the one thing, Sam, that stops people from passing these exams more than anything else is guilt. That's the emotion that gets people. You either feel guilty because you're not spending time with friends and family and doing the things you want to do because you've got to study, or you feel guilty because you're not studying and you're spending time with friends and family. And so you're in this constant maelstrom of anxiety and guilt because you don't feel you're doing one thing or the other. In the Academy, we've built a program that hopefully alleviates that, that says, go and focus for 2 sets of half an hour, or even if you want 2 sets of 45 minutes, really get stuck into the syllabus, get stuck into the material, and you'll remember more from it, but then go and do something completely different and go and enjoy yourself and do the things that you want to do out of life, or get on with working or childcare or all of those other things that you might be doing, because it's important to have that balance whilst you study. And that's how we've designed all of the tools within the Academy to enable people to either do something in a very focused way in a short period of time, or to find that blend and balance with life.
Absolutely, and that's super, super important to me when it came to the Financial Planner Life Academy, was to allow someone to be able to pick something up and put it down that suits them. One of the things we see within the financial planning profession as a whole is that people feel they have to jump two-footed into a career in financial planning or mortgage advice and study at the same time. We wanted to create a community. We wanted to create a way that people don't have to do that, because often in that situation, people can take things like a drop in salary, plus there's the whole having to learn the role whilst you're doing the studying. And sometimes people think that's the right way to do it, and it can be for some people. That could be the right way to do it, right? But actually, why leave your job to join a profession where it might not work out? You don't ever know that, but instead take a more calculated, relaxed approach to your qualifications, to your study, to building your knowledge, your soft skills, your training and development. And when the time is right, lean into me, lean into our expert career guides, who will then look to place you in a company at the right time, in the right firm, that also meet your intrinsic values. So that is what we want from this academy. It has to be a gentle process or a fast process, dependent upon the delegates' attitude to passing those qualifications and getting into the profession. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to not miss any future episodes. If you're interested in joining the Financial Planner Life Academy, click the link in the comments section below. And remember, I want to hear back from you. Any questions, any advice, leave it in the comments section and I'll be sure to respond to that straight away. Many thanks.